Okay, let's try to unpack the story we're all living in right now. You know the one.
The big one.
Yeah, it's the narrative that dominates, every tech headline, every boardroom meeting, probably every dinner party you've had in the last 6 months. It's the story of the line that just goes up and to the right.
The assumption of inevitability.
Exactly. The idea that technological progress is just this, unstoppable law of physics. We assume AI models will get smarter every week, productivity is going to skyrocket, and we're just destined for this sci-fi future.
It's not a question of if, it's just a question of when.
Right. We're on the train is moving fast, and we're all just passengers.
It's a comfortable story.
Mhm.
It makes the future feel certain, but it's also a story that breeds a very specific kind of complacency.
And this is where it gets really interesting. What if that story is completely wrong?
Mhm.
What if progress isn't a law of physics? What if it's actually a historical accident?
That is the pivotal question we are grappling with today.
Right.
We're looking at a fascinating piece of analysis that suggests the AI golden age isn't guaranteed at all.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
In fact, it argues that throughout history, stagnation, not progress, has been the default setting for humanity. And, well, if we aren't careful, we might be heading right back there.
That is a terrifying thought to start a deep dive with, but I am here for it. So, what's our source material?
Okay, so we're looking at a review titled The Fragility of Innovation, an AI review of Carl Frey, and it's written by Johan Steyn.
Right.
And Steyn is digging into a massive new book coming out in 2025 by Benedikt Frey. It's called How Progress Ends: Technology, Innovation, and the Fate of Nations.
And Frey is a heavy hitter in this space. He's famous for his work at Oxford on automation, the future of work.
He is, but in this new book, he's zooming out, way out. He's taking us on a 1,000-year journey to understand why some societies boom and others just bust.
So the mission today is a reality check. We aren't looking at code. We aren't looking at benchmark.
No parameter counts.
None of that. We are looking at the history of human civilization to figure out if we're about to crash the car in this race for AI dominance.
Precisely. Because if you look at the last millennium, the pattern isn't a steady climb. It's a series of sort of fragile sparks that usually get snuffed out.
Okay, let's start with that core thesis from Frey. You said stagnation is the default. That feels so counterintuitive because looking around, everything seems to be moving so
It
fast.
feels fast to us because we live in the exception. Frey's argument is that for most of human history, rapid innovation was incredibly rare,
So we're living in an anomaly.
a fragile one.
Thank you.
It was contingent on a million little things going right. We look at the last 200 years and think, oh, this is normal. But statistically, on the grand timeline of humanity, the last 200 years are a freak accident.
So we're just lucky.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
But it's more about how society is organized. It's about the incentives we create. And Steyn's review highlights these two amazing historical examples that Frey uses to make his point. It's a tale of two empires,
Okay.
Imperial China and Industrial Britain.
Let's start with Imperial China then, because we often have this very Western-centric view that the Industrial Revolution just had to happen in Europe, because Europe was smarter or something. But that's not true, is it?
Not at all. Not even close.
Yeah.
If you went back to, say, the Song or early Ming Dynasty, medieval China was, by many measures, far more advanced than the West.
But they had the technology.
They had the tech stack, gunpowder, the
Yeah.
compass, paper money, advanced hydraulic engineering. They had spinning machines that were centuries ahead of the ones in England.
Okay, so they had the tech, and they had an incredibly powerful bureaucracy that excelled at one thing.
Stability.
And stability sounds good, right? You
Mhm.
want a stable society to build things. You don't want anarchy.
You do, but,
Yeah.
and here's the catch. This is crucial. China prioritized maintaining social order above everything else.
Okay.
They had this centralized control system that was amazing at keeping the peace, but it viewed disruption as a threat. And innovation, by definition,
Is disruptive.
is disruptive.
Right, because if you invent a new way of doing things, you're usually putting the old way out of business.
Exactly. Imagine you're the emperor. You have a stable society. Everyone has their place. Then some guy invents a machine that does the work of 10 people.
Suddenly you have 9 angry, unemployed people who might riot.
So what do?
You ban the machine.
You ban the machine. The Chinese state, in its pursuit of harmony, effectively stifled the chaos that's required for innovation. They chose control over disruption.
Wow. So they had the seeds of an industrial revolution, but the political soil was toxic to it.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Now, compare that to industrial Britain, because that place was It was definitely not known for its harmony.
No, it was messy. From what I remember, it was dirty, chaotic, politically turbulent.
It was. But Frey points out that Britain had open markets and flexible political arrangements. It wasn't a top-down monolith. It allowed entrepreneurs to challenge the old order.
So it was a system that tolerated people breaking things.
Yes. And that brings us to what I think is the most important concept in this whole deep dive. Frey identifies this sort of Goldilocks zone for progress.
Not too hot, not too cold.
Not too centralized, not too chaotic. You need decentralized experimentation, that's the Britain part, where people can try wild new ideas without asking permission.
Okay.
But you also need enough coordination to scale those ideas.
Right. If you have too little coordination, the ideas just die in the garage. They never go anywhere.
Exactly. Total anarchy. You can't enforce a patent. You can't ship goods safely. But the bigger danger, and this is the one Frey really focuses on, is the other side.
Too much coordination.
Too much bureaucracy or too much monopoly power. The incumbents, the people who are currently making all the money, will block progress to protect their profits.
Right.
Frey calls this rent-seeking.
Okay, let's pause and really break down rent-seeking. I hear this term all the time in economics, but I feel like people just confuse it with, paying rent.
It's a vital concept. It's so important.
So what does it actually mean here?
Think of the economy as a pie. There are two ways to get a bigger slice.
Okay.
One way is to bake a bigger pie. That's innovation. You create something new, value is added, everyone is potentially better off.
Baking a bigger pie. I like that.
The second way is to just grab a bigger slice of the existing pie, usually by pushing someone else away from the table.
That's rent-seeking.
That's rent-seeking. You aren't creating new value.
Yeah.
You are just manipulating the political or social environment to transfer wealth to yourself.
Give me a concrete example.
Oh, the classic one is a guild in medieval times or a corporate lobbyist today going to the government and saying, please pass a law that says only we are allowed to sell this.
Or please pass a regulation that's so expensive no small startup could ever afford it.
Ah, so you're using the rules of the game to win rather than being better at the sport.
Exactly. It's using political power to protect economic profit. And Frey's argument is that when societies drift too far toward rent-seeking and centralization, progress just stops. Why would you innovate? It's risky and hard.
It's much easier to just lobby for protection.
Which brings us terrifyingly close to the present day, because we are seeing this massive shift towards centralization in AI.
We are. And this is where Steyn applies Frey's history lesson to the modern AI race between the U.S. and China.
Okay, so the standard story right now is that China might win because they can move so fast. The government says, jump. Tech companies say, how high?
They have the data, they have the state support. It looks like a huge advantage. That's the state-led model.
And Frey is skeptical of it.
Highly skeptical. He admits that strong states like modern China are excellent at catching up. If the tech already exists, a centralized state can scale it up faster than anyone else.
They can build the railways, the factories, the data centers.
But AI isn't about catching up anymore. We're in uncharted territory.
And that's the key distinction.
That's it. Frey argues that genuinely new ideas, frontier innovation, require that messy, decentralized experimentation we talked about. You need a system that tolerates failure. You need robust competition where the best idea wins, not the idea that was approved by the state.
So the argument is that China might actually struggle to invent the next big breakthrough because their system is designed to suppress that kind of chaotic thinking.
Precisely. If you punish dissent and you prioritize control, you inevitably narrow the field of ideas. You might get great incremental improvements, but you miss the big paradigm shifts.
And this is a big but. Before we get too comfortable over here in the West, feeling superior about our freedom to fail, the source material throws a huge wrench in the gears.
Yeah, this is the part that should make American listeners really uncomfortable.
Frey isn't just criticizing China. He sees sclerosis in the United States, too.
He does. He warns that the U.S. is drifting toward its own form of stagnation.
How? I mean, we have Silicon Valley, we have startups, the garage inventors.
We do, but look at the market structure. We're seeing massive corporate concentration. A handful of corporate giants, you know who they are dominating the entire AI landscape.
And when you get companies that big facing too little challenge, the incentive shifts.
They start playing defense instead of offense.
They use their power to entrench themselves. They buy up potential competitors or, and here we go again, they lobby for regulations that make it impossible for a startup to even get in the game.
Wait, so when these big CEOs go to Washington and say, please regulate us, AI is dangerous, They might not just be acting out of altruism.
A cynic, or maybe a historian like Frey, would say that asking for complex regulation is a fantastic way to make sure two people in a garage can never compete with you.
Right. If compliance costs $10 million, the startup is dead on arrival.
That is institutional sclerosis. The arteries of the economy just harden.
Exactly. And when industrial policy becomes protectionism, or when big tech uses its leverage to lock out the little guys, that decentralized experimentation, it starts to die.
So we're risking our industrial Britain advantage by letting our own companies become more like the imperial China bureaucracy.
That's the danger. Frey sees trends in both superpowers drifting toward control. And if history is any guide, that is a really bad sign for the AI golden age.
This is really shifting my perspective. I usually think of the AI race as just, who has the fastest chips or who has the most data.
But this suggests the real bottleneck is institutional. It's how we organize ourselves. It's the soil, not just the seed.
So let's talk about the soil. What does this mean for different people listening? Steyn's review mentions the implications for emerging economies like South Africa.
Yes, and the advice here is critical. Steyn emphasizes you can't just import technology and expect a miracle.
The field of dreams approach. If you build the data center, they will come.
Right. But Steyn calls that out as a fallacy. Building data centers is not enough. You need the institutions. Competition policy, education, good governance, and trust.
Why is trust so important here?
Because innovation requires risk. If I don't trust the legal system to protect my patent, or if I fear the government will just seize my company if I get too successful.
You're not going to innovate.
No. I'm going to hide my money or leave the country.
And Steyn also notes that betting on a single national champion company is a huge mistake.
Yes. Governments love picking a winner. This company X is our AI champion. But Frey argues the soil matters more than the seed. You need an ecosystem of thousands of small experiments, not one giant state-pampered tree.
Okay, what about business leaders? Say I'm a CEO listening to this, I'm looking at AI, and I'm thinking, how do I use this to make my company unbeatable?
Well, the source suggests unbeatable might be the wrong goal if it leads to complacency. Frey warned that the current AI enthusiasm could actually lead to stagnation if companies just use it to dig in rather than break out.
Digging in, meaning using AI to just cut costs and secure your current market share.
Right. Optimizing your supply chain by 1% or, firing your customer service staff to save money. That's defensive. That's just digging a deeper moat.
But it doesn't create any new value for the world.
No. The call to action here is much harder. Real progress requires the willingness to disrupt your own business model.
The innovator's dilemma.
It is. It requires the courage to say, this new technology might destroy my current profit center, but I have to pursue it anyway. Because if you don't, someone else will. Unless you use rent-seeking to stop them.
So the choice for a leader is innovate or lobby for protection. Frey urges the former. Be a disruptor, even if it hurts.
Okay, let's bring it down to the individual level. The learner, the parent, the citizen. How does this change how we see the world?
It challenges the story we tell the next generation. We have this habit of telling kids that the future will automatically be richer, more advanced, easier.
We treat progress like it's gravity.
It's just there. Don't worry, the scientist will fix climate change. The AI will cure cancer.
But Frey's work reminds us that progress is fragile. It is not guaranteed. If we let our institutions hollow out, or if we tolerate extreme inequality, the technological miracles won't save us.
It puts the agency back on us. We aren't just passengers on the train of progress. We're the maintenance crew.
Beautifully put. The future isn't some upward curve. It's a field of choices. We have to choose openness. We have to choose competition.
Now, before we wrap up, we have to touch on the nuance here. Because Steyn's review, it isn't just a love letter to Frey's book. He points out some blind spots.
He does, and this is important for a balanced view. Frey is an economist who clearly champions entrepreneurial dynamism.
The startup energy.
He loves it. But critics argue he might underestimate other factors that cause stagnation.
Like what? What's he missing?
One major critique is inequality. Frey focuses on institutions, but if all the gains from AI only go to the top 0.1%, if the pie gets bigger but only one person gets a slice, that kills demand.
Right. If robots make all the stuff but nobody has a job to pay for the stuff, the whole economy crashes.
Exactly. So inequality can be a driver of stagnation in its own right, not just some side effect.
And what about the environment? That seems like a massive constraint that didn't exist in medieval China.
That's the big one. Ecological limits. Overshoot. You can have the best institutions in the world, but if you run out of fresh water, or if the climate destabilizes to the point that agriculture fails,
Progress stops.
progress stops. Frey seems to view these as problems that innovation will just solve.
Right, challenges for entrepreneurs to overcome.
But critics would argue they are hard physical limits. We might hit a wall that no amount of decentralized experimentation can break through if we ignore the laws of thermodynamics.
So the book is a necessary counterbalance to the blind optimism of the tech world, even if it doesn't have all the answers.
Exactly. It's a crucial piece of the puzzle. It reminds us that technology without the right social and political structure is just a toy or a weapon. It's not necessarily progress.
Okay, let's bring this deep dive in for a landing. We've gone from the bureaucracy of medieval China to the chaotic factories of industrial Britain, all the way to the server farms of Silicon Valley.
And the through line is so clear. Technology does not exist in a vacuum. It lives or dies based on the power structures and the institutions that surround it.
We started by asking if progress is a trap. And I think the answer is only if we take it for granted.
If we assume the future looks after itself, that is when progress ends.
So here is the final thought I want to leave you with today. We all have these comfortable assumptions about AI. Maybe you think it's inevitably going to take your job, or maybe you think it's inevitably going to solve climate change. But based on what we've talked about, I want to ask you, what is one comfortable assumption about the inevitability of the future that you need to stop believing today?
That's the question. Because once you stop assuming the future is guaranteed, you realize you have a role in shaping it.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.